Very generous. I like that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to all of you. I'm sitting here, and I know that we're talking about consulate construction, but I just came home from the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is now, along with Puerto Rico, considered the fourth border. And we had a weekend of violence that was profound, with a young man being gunned down in a daycare parking lot while his wife went to pick up their child, 100 shots being fired in the early evening in another part of the town, and then the following morning in front of a high school at 9 o'clock in the morning, granted it was a Saturday, another individual being gunned down. And I understand that a lot of this is, one, due to economic non-opportunity, failing schools, but also because of the guns and drugs that come through borders like my own. And when I look at, in 2007, that the U.S. and Mexico began what I hear is called the Merida Initiative, which according to the State Department is an initiative with 4 general goals: to disrupt criminal organizations, strengthen judicial institutions, improve border infrastructure and technology, and improve stability in the Mexican community. I wish that places like Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands had an initiative with its own government like that. But when I see some of the bills that are coming through and the lack of appropriations and the lack of support I'm getting from many of my colleagues on that, it makes me question if any of that's ever going to happen. But I know we're here supposed to talk about consulate construction and progress in Mexico, and so I've digressed, and I'll get back on topic to what I was supposed to be talking about. I was fortunate to go with my colleague, Mr. Chaffetz, to Mexico in May because I was interested in seeing how borders and consulates operate to stem not just the tide of illegal drugs and guns and individuals coming undocumented into this country, but also the amount of work and cooperation that's done in agriculture as well, in places like between Mexico and the United States, and the amount of trade and consumer goods and commerce that happens in these areas. And so we went and we visited the site where the new Mexico City embassy is supposed to be built. And I understand that there are a lot of consulates in this area because of the amount of commerce and trade along with individuals that go on in these areas. So I wanted to ask, and I think, Mr. Moser, you would be the appropriate person, the 3 consulates in dangerous areas near the border, Tijuana, Juarez, Monterrey, they've all recently been completed in 2008, 2011, and 2014, respectively. Is that correct?
Yes, that's Ciudad Juarez, Tijuana, and Monterrey.
Okay. And all of these 3 consulates meet security standards?
Ma'am, I cannot build a building without Mr. Starr's explicit approval.
So, Mr. Starr, did they meet your approval?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And there's another consulate that's currently under construction that's estimated to be completed in 2017. Mr. Starr, is that correct? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
And then the consulate in Matamoros and the embassy in Mexico City are also supposed to soon be under construction.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
The 4 remaining consulates are in the site acquisition phase for new locations, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
And as for the completion timelines, when we traveled to Mexico City, they were told that the Matamoros consulate was estimated to be completed in 2019, and Mexico City Embassy estimated to be finished in 2020. Are those timelines still in place?
Yes, ma'am.
And
They do depend somewhat on Mexico City's case about when we will receive the clean site.
Okay. And as I recall, the clean site was not for the entire space. It was for a portion of that embassy.
For a very small portion in the southern corner of the site.
And we have an idea when Mexico's, the government will give that?
Ma'am, we are working with our seller in order to obtain the clean site. and we are working currently on a timeline for the delivery of that, and we expect it to be sometime in the fall of 2016.
Okay. And can you explain how State is responding to the delays in that, aside from just working with the seller?
If you mean how we're responding, I will say this. You know, we looked for 10 years, over a decade, at 20 different sites in Mexico City to find one that would meet our very robust and, by this hearing, everyone acknowledges, very important diplomatic platform that we have in Mexico City. When we finally identified from our seller the Nuevo Blanco site, which is a short couple-mile distance from our current location, we realized that this would actually fulfill all of our programmatic needs, from providing an effective platform to for our law enforcement agencies, to our traditional diplomatic activities, to even providing space for a Benjamin Franklin library, which is very important for our public diplomacy outreach. Yes, there have been delays in acquiring the site, but we still feel that within this timeline that this is sufficient for us to build a building from from the time we receive the site and get it up and operational. And that construction timeline is around 50 months.
And when I talked with the people on the site, primarily one of the main reasons why this was such a great site is because the ability to buy land of that size from multiple sellers is almost impossible.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Because, you know, and one of the things is I want to note here, you know, it would have been possible, of course, to find a greenfield site if we wanted to be well outside of Mexico City. But to the extent that we need to engage with our colleagues in the Mexican government and in businesses, we need to be in an urban location that really mirrors our present diplomatic platform.
Okay. Thank you so much. I've exhausted my gracious and generous time. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for your generosity.